My son said, I'm independent now, so I canceled his health. 2 days later, they called. I was sitting in my home office when my son Marcus walked in without knock. He had that look on, the one I'd been seeing more often, confident, borderline arrogant. He was 24, fresh out of a business degree, and 6 months into his first real job, tech startup downtown. Dad, we need to talk, he said, not asking if I was busy. I closed my laptop. Sure. What's up? He crossed his arm. I've been thinking. I'm making my own money now. I have my own apartment. I don't need you managing my life anymore. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I kept my face neutral. Okay, what specifically are we talking about? Everything. I'm independent now. I can handle my own affairs. I don't need you checking in on me about my finance, giving me advice I didn't ask. The word stung. I'd always been involved, not controlling, but supportive, available, present. I mean it. I'm not a kid anymore. I need you to respect. He seemed surprised by how easily. Good. So, we're clear? We're clear. He left my office without saying anything else. I sat there for a long time, staring at the closed door. The thing is, I had spent 24 years building a life that revolved around being Marcus's father. When his mother and I divorced when he was 6, I made a promise to myself that he would never feel abandoned. I worked extra shifts as an engineer to afford his private school tuition. I coached his soccer teams even though I knew nothing about soccer. I sat through every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every college campus tour. When he wanted to study business instead of engineering like me, supported it. When he wanted to move downtown into an expensive apartment instead of saving money living at home, I helped him with the security deposit. When he said he wanted to work at a startup with no job security instead of taking the stable corporate offer, I told him to follow his passion. I had always believed that parenting didn't end at 18, that being there for your child meant being there always, in whatever capacity I'd been. Maybe I stayed my welcome, my own. The next few weeks, quiet. Mark didn't call, didn't text. I saw on social media that he was going out with friends, traveling on weekends, living his independent life. I tried to give him space. I really did. But old habits are hard to break. I found myself picking up my phone to call him, then setting it down, drafting texts asking how he was, then deleting them. My buddy Richard noticed at our weekly poker game. You seem off, he said, dealing the card. Marcus told me he's independent now. Doesn't need his old man anymore. Richard laughed, but not unkindly. They all go through that phase. Give it time. He seemed pretty serious. He's 24. He thinks he's got it all figured out. Trust me, reality has a way of humbling people. I didn't respond. I just looked at my cards and tried to focus on the game. About a month after our conversation, I was going through my monthly bills. Health insurance, car insurance, phone bill, streaming services, and there it was. Marcus's health insurance premium, $340 a month. I'd been covering Marcus under my family plan since he was born. Even after the divorce, I'd kept him on my insurance. When he turned 26, cutoff age, I'd planned to have a conversation with him about transitioning to his own plan, but that was still 2 years. I stared at the line item on my banking app, $340 every month for years. Marcus's words echoed in my head. I'm independent now. I don't need you managing my life anymore. I sat back in my chair. He was right, wasn't he? He was independent. He had a job. He could get his own health insurance through his employer or through the marketplace. I wasn't trying to be petty. I wasn't trying to teach him a lesson. I was just taking him at his word. He wanted independence. He wanted me to stop managing his life. So I would. The next morning, I called my insurance. I need to remove a dependent from my health plan, I told the representative. Certainly. Can I have the dependent's name and date of birth? I gave her Marcus information. And what date would you like this change to be effective? I hesitated for end of this. Understood. The dependent will be removed last day of the month. You'll receive a confirmation email within 24 hours. Thank you. I hung up. I sat there for a while waiting to feel guilt, regret. But I didn't feel either of those things. I felt calm. I wasn't being vindictive. I wasn't trying to hurt my son. I was simply respecting his wishes. He wanted to be independent. This was part of being independent. I didn't tell Marcus. I thought about it, but then I realized that if I told him, it would turn into another conversation where I was managing his life, warning him, guiding him, and he'd made it clear he didn't want that. So I said nothing. The first day of the next month came and went. Then the second. On the afternoon of the second day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Is this Mr. Robert Chen? A woman's voice, professional but strained. Yes, this is Robert. Mr. Chen, this is Diana from Mercy General Hospital. I'm calling regarding your son, Marcus Chen. My heart stopped. What happened? Is he okay? He's stable now, but he was brought in this morning after a car accident. Nothing life-threatening, but he has a concussion, some lacerations, and we needed to run a CT scan. The issue is that when we tried to verify his insurance, we discovered his coverage was terminated. Do you know anything about this? Closed. Yes. I removed him from my plan at his request. Well, the preliminary bill for his emergency visit and scan is approximately $8,300. He's asking to speak. Would you be willing to come? I'll be there in 20 minutes. I drove to the hospital, my hands tight during. I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared of something else, something I couldn't quite name. When I got to his room, Marcus was sitting up in the hospital bed, a bandage on his left arm, sling. He looked young, vulnerable, exactly like he used to look when he was a little boy who fallen off. Dad, his voice cracked. I stood in the doorway. Are you okay? Yeah. I mean, I'm fine. It's just, he gestured vaguely. They're saying I don't have insurance, that it was canceled. It was, quietly. His eyes widened. What? Why didn't you tell me? You said you were independent. You didn't need me managing your life. That didn't mean cancel my health insurance without telling me. I didn't raise my voice. What did it mean then? He opened his mouth, closed it. You didn't think I was serious about respecting your independence? Dad, this isn't fair. What isn't fair, Marcus? He looked away. I can't afford this. The hospital bill. I don't have $8,000. What does your job's health insurance? I haven't enrolled you. Open enrollment isn't for another 2 months. Are you really going to make me pay for this? Hold up a chair and Marcus, I'm not trying to teach. When you told me you were independent and didn't need me in your life, I believed you. I didn't mean it like. Then how did you mean it? He struggled. Fine. I wanted some space, some freedom. I didn't want you calling me every week asking about my finance, job, or apartment. So you wanted me to stop being involved in your life. No, not stop. Just less. I sat back in the chair. Marcus, you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me you don't want me managing your life and then expect me to keep managing the parts that are convenient for you. That's not independence. That's just using someone. His face flushed. That's not what I was doing, wasn't it? He looked at me. Shift. Maybe it was the reality. Something changed. I didn't realize, he said quietly, I didn't realize how much you're still doing for me. I know you didn't. I thought I was independent because I had a job and an apartment, part of it. But independence also means insurance. It means emergency funds. It means planning for things like this. Gestured at the hospital. He nodded slowly, wincing at the movement. I messed up. You're young. You're learning. Are you going to help me? I looked at my son, really looked at him. 24 years old enough to vote, sign, take his decision, but still young enough to learn from his mistake without being destroyed by them. Here's what I'll do. I'll pay the hospital bill this time, but you're going to pay me back, not all at once, but over time. We'll work out a payment plan that fits your budget. Okay. And you're going to enroll in your company's health insurance the moment open enrollment starts. If they don't offer it, you're going to get a plan through the marketplace. You're going to handle yourself. I'll help you understand the options if you want, but the decision and the responsibility are yours. He nodded again. I will. I promise. And Marcus, one more thing. Yeah? If you want space from me, you're an adult. Decide what kind of relationship, but don't confuse independence with isolation. Asking for help isn't weakness. Staying connected to your family isn't childish. Independence means being able to take care of yourself, but it also means knowing when to ask support and being willing to give it in return for how I know you. I didn't mean to be ungrateful. I don't think you were trying to be. I think you were just trying to figure out who you are separate from being my son. That's normal. That's healthy. But you can be your own person and still let me be in your life. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. We sat in silence. The machines beeped softly. Somewhere down the hall, a nurse called for assistance. Finally, Mark, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you really cancel my insurance for telling me? I thought about the question, about the anger I hadn't let myself feel, about the hurt I'd pushed down, about the quiet decision I'd made that morning to simply step back and let consequences teach the lesson I couldn't. Because you asked me to stop managing your life, I said, and because sometimes the most respectful thing a parent can do is take their adult child serious, even when it's hard, even when you want to protect them from their own mistakes. He absorbed that. Must have been really hard. Did you know this? Smile. I didn't know you'd get in a car accident, but did I think you might discover gaps in independence? You could have just told me, but you wouldn't have heard me the same way. You would have heard your father lecture, managing, not respecting your autonomy. This way, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, you're a sneaky old idol. I prefer to think of it as experience. The hospital discharged him that evening with instruction to rest. His car was totaled, but he walked away with minor injury. Lucky, the doctor. Very lucky. I drove him back to his apartment. He lived on the 3rd floor of a renovated building in a trendy neighborhood. I'd helped him move in 4 months ago, carried boxes up those stairs, assembled his IKEA furniture. He'd been so proud so excited to be on his own. I helped him up to his apartment, good arm draped over my shoulder. Inside, the place was exactly as I remembered. Modern furniture, minimal decoration, a few dishes in the sink. The home of a young man still figuring out how to take care of himself. I got him settled on the couch, water, pain. I can stay if you want. Sleep on the couch. Make sure you're okay through the night. I'll be okay. But thanks, Dad. Call me if I will. I headed toward the door, then stopped. Marcus, yeah? I'm proud of you for trying to build your own life, for wanting to be independent. That takes courage. His eyes got a little glassy. Thanks, Dad. And I'm here. When you need me, when you want me, on your terms. Okay? Okay. I drove home through the city streets, watching the lights blurp. My phone rang when I was about halfway home. Marcus's name on the screen. Everything okay? I answered. Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you for coming, for helping, for everything. You don't have to thank me, your father, but I want to. Something in my chest loosened. You're welcome, Dad. Yeah? Can you still call me sometimes? Check in? Not every week, maybe, but sometime. That. Me too. We hung up. Over the next few months, things changed. Not dramatic. Not all at once. Gradually, steadily. Marcus enrolled in his health insurance. He called me with questions about the different plans, and I helped him understand the deductibles and copay without making the decision for him. He set up a payment plan to pay me back for the hospital bill, $50 a week. It would take him over 3 years to pay it all back, but he never missed a payment. We started having dinner together once a month. His idea, fancy, just a meal at a restway between our. We talked work, life, about things that mattered and things didn't. He started asking for my advice again, but differently. Not because he needed me to solve his problems, but because he valued respect. And I learned to give him space, to let him figure things out on his own, to resist the urge to jump in and fix everything. One evening, next month, he asked having dinner at an Italian place he liked. I've been thinking about, he mentioned about independence, not meaning isolation. I think I had it back while. I thought being independent meant not needing anyone, but that's not really independence, just being alone, not cutting off the family because they think that's what being an adult means, but they're just more alone. What do you think being an adult? I think it means being responsible for yourself, but also being connected to the people who matter. It means knowing the difference between someone trying to control you and someone trying to support you. That's wise. I learned it from someone stubborn enough to let me fail, said Smile. I prefer patient enough to let you learn. He laughed. Same thing. We finished dinner and walked out to our car. The night was cool, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement from an earlier rain. Dad, Marcus said as we reached. Yeah? I'm glad you didn't give up on me when I was being stupid. You weren't being stupid. You were being 24. Still? I put my hand on his shoulder. Marcus, I want you to understand something. There is nothing you could do, nothing you could say that would make me give up on. But sometimes loving someone means stepping back. It means letting them make their own mistakes and their own choices, even when it hurts to watch. He nodded. I get that now. Good. We said goodnight. As I drove home, I thought about all the years of parenting, all the decisions, all the doubt. Had I done it right? Had I been too involved? Not involved enough? I didn't know. Parenting doesn't come with a manual or a scorecard, but I knew that my son was finding his way. He was learning to be independent without being isolated. He was learning to ask for help without being dependent. He was learning that being an adult doesn't mean doing everything alone, and maybe that was enough. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Thanks for dinner. Same time next month? I smiled and typed back, it's a date. Then I added, Marcus, I'm proud of the man you're becoming. The response came quickly. Love you too, Dad. I set my phone down and kept driving, the city lights guiding me home. The thing about being a parent is that you never stop worrying. You never stop wanting to protect your child from pain, failure, from the hard lessons, but sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them fall. Let them discover on their own what they need and what they don't. Marcus had told me he was independent. He'd meant it as a rejection, as a boundary, as a way to push me out of his life. But by taking him seriously, by respecting his words, even when they hurt, I'd given him something more valuable than my constant presence. I'd given him the chance to realize that he wanted me in his life, not because he needed me, but because he chose. And that made all the character. 18,473. I drove home that night thinking about the years ahead. Marcus would make mistakes. He'd face more challenges. There would be times when he'd need me and times when he'd need space. But now we had a foundation built on mutual respect and understanding, on the recognition love doesn't mean control, independent doesn't mean isolation. My ex-wife called me the next. She'd heard about the accident. Marcus, I heard what you did. Her tone was neutral. Hard. Which part? Canceling his insurance months without telling him I waited. That was either really smart or really cruel. Can't do which. Maybe both. Quiet. He called me, told me about the hospital bill, the payment plan, all of it. And he sounded different, more mature, more thoughtful. Say to, I just took him at his word when he said he was independent. Short, sharp. That's very you. Compliment? Thinks he needed to understand that actions have consequences. That words mean things. I wasn't trying to. I know. That's what in effect. You just respected his choice and let reality do the rest. We talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. Our relationship had been complicated since the divorce, but we'd always agreed on one thing. Marcus came first. The weeks turned into months. Spring became summer. Marcus kept making his payment, kept showing up for our monthly dinners, kept calling to ask advice about decisions he was facing. His car insurance renewed, and he called me to ask if I thought he should increase his coverage. What do you think? I think after the accident, I realize how quickly things can go wrong. That sounds solid, but it'll cost more. That's the trade-off. More protection costs more money. You have to decide what you can afford and what risk you're comfortable with. I could hear him thinking through it. I'm going to increase it. I'd rather pay more now than be caught without coverage again. That's a mature decision. I'm learning, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. In July, Marcus invited me to company picnic. I almost said no, thinking he'd prefer to be there without his father hovering. But something in his tone made me. It was a Saturday afternoon at a park, food, lawn, co-workers, family. Marcus introduced me to his boss, to the friends he'd made at work, and not with embarrassment or reluctance, but with something that sounded almost like pride. His boss, a woman in her 40s named Sarah, pulled me aside at one. Your son speaks highly, kind of. He told me about the car accident, about the insurance tent. I hope he doesn't think I was trying to. She held up a hand. He told me it was the best thing you could have done, that it taught him more about responsibility any lecture would have. He actually tells the story to our new hires as an example of understanding the important benefits. I didn't. You raised a good man, Sarah continued. He's going. We're lucky to have him. Thank you. Later, as Marcus and I were leaving, he walked to my car. Thanks for coming. Thanks for inviting. I wanted you to see what I'm building, the life creating. I'm impressed. Your boss seems to think highly of. She told me I'm being considered for team lead position. Marcus wondered. He grinned. I'm pretty excited. It would mean more money, more responsibility. I'd actually be able to save for a house? Eventually, not right away, but it's a goal. Stood by my car, the summer sun, warm. I'm really proud of you. Not just for the job stuff, for everything, for the way you've grown this past year. I had a good teacher, even if he taught me by letting me fail. That's the hardest kind of teaching. I know, I appreciate it now. At the time, I was pretty pissed. But you were right. I needed to learn those lessons myself. If you just kept handling everything for me, I never would have grown up. The thing was, he had grown up. Somewhere between that day in my office when he declared his independence and this sunny afternoon in the park, my son had become a man. Not because he could pay his own bills, hold down a job. Those were just the outward mark. He'd become a man because he understood now that strength isn't about doing everything alone. That wisdom isn't about refusing help. That maturity isn't about cutting ties with the people who love you. I should get going. But same time next month for dinner? Actually, I was thinking, what if we made it every other instead of once? I felt warm bread. I'd like that. That night, I sat in my home office, the same place where Marcus had stood nearly a year ago, and told me he didn't need me any. I thought about all the ways parenting changes as your children grow. When they're babies, keep them alive. When they're children, you teach them about the world. When they're teenage, you guide them through chaos. But when they're adults, your job is something else. It's being available without being intrusive. It's offering support, over. It's loving them enough to let them make their own mistake. And Victor, I pulled up my phone and looked at our text, the last message from Marcus earlier that day. Had a great time at the picnic. Glad you came. Started typing response, then stopped. Deleted. Finally, I settled on, me too. See you in 2 weeks. Simple, clear, enough. My son had taught me something over this past year. He'd taught me that sometimes the most important thing a parent can do is get out of the way. Not abandon, not disappear, but simply step back and trust the foundation you built over all those years strong enough to hold. I'd given Marcus roots and wings, but the hardest part was learning to let him use the wing. The insurance bill came up on my phone as I sat there. $340 I no longer paid every month, money that went back into my own saving, my own retirement. It felt strange at first, not seeing that line item, like something was missing. But then I realized it wasn't missing. It had just transformed into something else, into independence, into growth, into a relationship relationship between two adults who chose to be in each other's lives, and that was worth more than any insurance premium. I closed my laptop and turned off the light. Tomorrow was Sunday. Maybe I'd text Mark and see if he wanted to grab breakfast. Not because he needed me to, not because I needed to check on it, because I wanted to spend time. And now I knew he wanted that too. The end came not with a dramatic confrontation or a tearful conciliation. It came in these small moments, in payment plan installments made on time, in dinner invitations extended and accepted, in advice asked and given, in a relationship rebuilt on new terms, stronger terms, better terms. Marcus had said he was independent, and he was right. He just needed to learn what independent action, and I needed to learn how to love my adult son without trying to parent my little boy. We both learned our lesson the hard way. That stuck, and in the end, that's all any parent can hope, that their children grow up, that they learn. Oh, you're proud. Marcus becoming that person, and I was grateful. Final character count 23, age 47. I need to expand the story to meet the 35,000, 40,000 character requirement. Let me continue with more depth. What's going on? I need advice about the promotion. I settled into my chair. Oh, what about it? They officially offered it to me. Team lead, 20% raise, management responsibilities, the whole thing. That's fantastic. Congratulations. But there's a catch. They're always. What kind of? The team I'd be leading includes Jamie. Jamie was someone Marcus had mentioned before. A colleague who'd been at the company longer, who'd also applied for the position, who hadn't taken rejection well. And you're worried about managing someone who wanted your job? More than that. I'm worried about whether I'm ready. Jamie has 3 more years of experience. The other team members are all older. What if they don't respect me? What if I fail? I thought carefully. Respond. The old version of me would have jumped in with reassurance, with solution, with a plan to make everything work out. But Marcus didn't need that. What do you think you should do? I don't know. That's why I'm calling you. You're calling because you want me to tell you what to do, or because you want to talk through it? Quiet. Talk through it. What's the worst? I take the job. I'm terrible. Everyone resents me. I get demoted or fired. Best, I take the job. I rise to the challenge. I earn their respect. Career advance. And what's the most likely? Somewhere in between. I struggle at first, make some mistake, but gradually figure it out and prove. That sounds realistic. Oh, but what if I make too many mistakes? What if I damage my reputation? Mark, let me ask you something. If you don't take this job, where will you be in a year? Same place I am now, same role, same responsibilities, and how does that feel? Safe, he admitted, but also stagnant. There's your answer. But you haven't told me. Because I can't. This is your career, your decision, your risk to take or not. But I can tell you this, every person I know who's done anything worthwhile has taken risk. They've stepped into roles they weren't sure they were ready for. They've failed and learned and grown. The ones who played it safe, who waited until they felt completely ready, most of them are still waiting. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. What would you do, he asked, if you were me? If I were you, at your age, with your skills and your opportunity, I'd take the job. I'd work harder than I've ever worked. I'd ask for help when I need it and learn from that side. Thanks, Dad. What are you going to? I think I'm take it. I think that's a good choice. Even though I'm scared, especially you're scared. Fear means it matters. It means you care enough to worry about well. He called me 2 days later to tell me he'd accepted the position. His first day as team lead would be October 1st. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance Marcus role. He called me occasionally, frustrated, challenges couldn't. I learned to listen without to validate. One evening in late October, he showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the kitchen making dinner when the doorbell rang. Marcus, what are you doing here? He looked exhausted. Can I come in? Of course. He slumped onto my couch, head in his hand. I sat across from him and waited. I think I made a mistake, said. With job? Yeah. It's too much. Jamie undermines me in meetings. The team doesn't take me serious. My boss keeps piling on more responsibility. I'm working 12-hour days, still falling behind. How long has it been? 3 weeks? 23 days. But who's counting? I almost smiled, but his pain was too real. And do you think you made a mistake taking the job? I'm not cut out for this. Or you're 3 weeks into a steep learning curve and you're tired. He looked up at me. I don't know if I can do that. What does your boss say? She says I'm doing fine, that it takes time. Everyone struggles in their first management role. And you don't believe her? I think she's being nice. I leaned forward. Marcus, I'm going to tell you something I should have told you a long time. When I got my first management position, 28 years old, I thought I was ready. I thought I had it all figured out. And I was terrible at it for months. I made every mistake you can imagine. I micromanaged. I failed to delegate. I took criticism personally. I almost quit. His eyes widened. You never told me that. Because I wanted you to think I had all the answers, that I'd always been confident, capable. But that wasn't true. Nobody starts out good managed. It's a skill you develop through trial and error. So what did you do? I kept showing up. I asked for feedback. I learned from my mistake. And slowly, over months, it got easier. I got better. How long did it take to feel competent? Maybe 6 months. to feel actually good at it more than he processed. Stick with it. I think you should decide for yourself whether this role is struggle. If it's not, there's no shame in saying this isn't for me and going back to your old position. But if it is worth it, then you need to commit to the learning curve. You need to accept that it's going to be hard for a while. Okay, I don't want to be a quitter. Knowing when to walk away isn't quitting, it's wisdom. But giving up because something is hard when you haven't really given it a fair shot, that's different. Sat there for a long time, thinking. Finally, he said, I want to make it work. Then make it work. Not by yourself. Ask for help. Find a mentor at work. Read books on management. Talk to other team leads. Use every resource available to you, including calling my dad when I'm out. Especially that. He managed a small smile. Okay, stay for dinner? Yeah, thanks. We ate together that night, talking about everything and nothing, about his struggles at work and my memories of similar struggles, about the upcoming holidays and his plans to visit his mother in Portland. Before he left, he hugged a real shoulder. Thanks for not telling me to quit. Thanks for not giving up. After he left, I cleaned up the kitchen and thought about how far we'd both come. A year ago, Marcus wouldn't have shown up at my door vulnerable and uncertain. He would have hidden his struggles, unwilling to admit he needed help. And a year ago, I might have tried to solve everything for him, called his boss, offered to intervene, treated him like a child who needed protecting. But we'd both learned better. He'd learned that asking for support wasn't weakness, that being independent didn't mean facing everything alone. And I'd learned that true support sometimes meant not solving the problem. It meant being present while he figured it out himself. The winter holidays approached. Marcus and I had our every other week dinners, our occasional phone calls, our slowly rebuilding relationship. In December, on the anniversary of the car accident, Marcus texted me, 1 year ago today, I learned what independence actually means. Thanks for teaching me the hard way. I texted back, thanks for being willing to learn. That Christmas, spent the day together, just the two of us, since his mother was traveling with her new husband. We exchanged simple gifts, nothing expensive or elaborate. I gave him a book on leadership. He gave me a framed photo from the company picnic, the two of us standing together, both smiling. I wanted you to have this, he said when I unwrapped it, to remember the day I started figuring things out. I looked at the photo for a long time. I'll treasure that. Yeah? I've been paying off the hospital bill, the payment plan we set up. I know, you haven't missed a week. I want to pay it off early. I got my year-end bonus, and I want to use part of it to clear the debt. I shook my head. Marcus, the payment plan is fine. You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to, but I want to. I want to close that chapter. Move forward without that hanging over me. I understood. Okay, if that's what it is. 2 weeks into January, Marcus made the final payment, $8,300, paid back in full. He called me when he sent the last transfer. It's done. We're square. We were always square, I said. But I'm proud of you for following through. I couldn't have done it without you. Not just paying the bill, but everything else. Teaching me what I needed to learn. You taught yourself, Mark. I just created the conditions for you to learn. Same thing. Not really, but I'll take the compliment. Wait. We talked for a while longer, and then he had to go. Another late night at the office, another challenge to navigate, another step in his ongoing growth. After we hung up, I sat in my office, thought about the year that passed, about the son who had stood in the same room and told me he didn't need me any, about the man he'd become, struggle, failure, and eventual success, about the father I'd been and the father I'd learned to be. The relationship we had now wasn't the one we'd had before. It was different, more equal, built on mutual respect rather than dependence. Better because Marcus had learned he could stand on his own, because I'd learned to, because we'd both discovered that love doesn't require control, that support doesn't mean solving, that being there for someone sometimes means stepping back and letting them find their own way. The insurance premium, no longer paid every month, had something more valuable than cover. It had bought growth, understanding, a relationship between two adults who chose each other, not out of obligation or need, but out of genuine connect. My phone buzzed with another text. Dinner this weekend? I want to run something by you. I smiled, typed back. Of course, your choice of rest. Deal. I set my phone down and looked around my office. The same desk, the same chair, the same walls. But everything felt different because it's different. And Marcus was different. And the relationship between us had evolved into something neither of us could have planned or predicted. It had evolved into exactly what it needed to be. Partnership, friendship, a connection between two independent people who valued each other's presence in their lives. That weekend over dinner, Marcus told me I'd wanted to start a side consulting for startups on team management and leadership development. developed. I've learned a lot the past year, he said, about management, about leadership, about what worked, what doesn't. I think I could help other people who are going through the same struggles I went through. Sounds like a great idea. But I wanted to ask your advice first. Is it too soon? Should I wait until I have more experience? I thought about my answer carefully. What do you think? Smiled. You always do that. Answer a question with a question, because the answer matters less than you thinking through it yourself. Fine. I think I should start small. Take on 1 or 2 clients while keeping my full-time job. Test the waters. See if there's actually demand for what I'm offering. Sound to it? I think you've already to do it, and you're looking for permission. You don't need my permission. You're an adult. You get to make your own choices, but I value your opinion, and I've given it. I think starting small is, I think leveraging what you've learned is valuable. I think you'll make mistakes and learn from them, just like you have everything else. He nodded. Good. Let me know if you need help. Business planning, financial projection, whatever. I will, thanks. We finished dinner and walked. The city was quiet, snow falling gently, coating everything in white. Hey, Dad, Marcus said as we reached the cars. Yeah? I'm glad we got here, to this place. Relation. Me too. Oh, even if it took a car accident and a huge hospital bill to get here. I laughed. Expensive lesson, but worth it. Definitely worth it. We said goodnight and drove our separate ways. As I headed home through the snowy streets, I thought about all the years of parenting behind me and all the years relation come. I thought about the day Marcus had declared his independence and the day he'd learned what independence actually meant. I thought about the father I'd been, always trying to protect, always trying to guide, always trying to manage, and the father I'd become, willing to step back, willing to let go, willing to trust the foundation I'd built strong enough to hold. Marcus had said he didn't need me, and he'd been right. He didn't need me the way a child needs a parent, but he wanted me the way an adult wants a relationship with someone they respect and love, and that was so much better than need had ever been. The snow continued to fall as I pulled into my driveway. Inside my everything quiet. I made myself tea and sat in my office looking at the framed photo Mark had given me for Christmas. 2 men standing together, both smiling, more than friend part. 2 independent people who'd chosen to share their lives. It had taken a canceled insurance policy to get us here. A car accident, a hospital. Hard lessons learned the hard way. We'd arrived. Not at a perfect, those don't exist, but at a real one, an honest one, a relationship built on respect and choice rather than obligation and need. And in the end, that was all I'd ever wanted, son, for him to stand on, to make his own choices, to build his own life. I just had to learn to get out of his way. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Marcus. Started drafting my business plan. First potential client meeting next week. Wish me luck. I typed back, you don't need luck. You've got, and I meant it because he did have it. Skills, the knowledge, determination, the resilience, everything he needed to succeed. Not because I'd given it to him, though I'd tried, but because he'd earned it himself through failure and struggle and hard-won growth. My son had become a man, and I'd learned how to be the father a man needed. It was enough. More than it was everything.